Hi guys, welcome to episode 3 of a revamped version of the Armchair Review with Kit and Viren. So many of you may have seen the Lord's Cricket Ground page on YouTube or other international cricket related pages where you get former players and current players and cricketing pundits alike to name their ultimate 11 or their best 11. So Kit and I thought, why not do this with a slight twist? You with all these in all these pages you have a separate test 11, a separate ODI 11, and sometimes the T20 11, but that's very rare. So we thought we'll have an all-time all format 11, but held in a different way with a draft style, which means Kitmina will go first with one pick, followed by me having two picks, and we'll go accordingly with two picks alternatively till we get our 11 sorted. And by doing this, I think we're testing our cricketing knowledge as well, bragging about our cricketing knowledge as well, because there's no way we could have predicted 11 prior to the episode. And I look forward to seeing what the two lineups shape like, because it will be interesting to see if we go to former players and see if they're fit enough to play in T20s and ODI cricket nowadays. And it will be interesting to see the blend between former and current players in both 11s. So Kit, the honor is yours for the first pick.
Are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to go first?
Are you sensing a slight advantage by having both your openers sorted by the next pick? I can go first if you want.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'll go first. So let's start with openers, I guess. And so the first.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll go. Are we going chronologically? Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go
Perfect.
chronologically. Okay. So openers. I thought about this a little bit before the podcast, so I'm not kind of flying blind, to be very honest.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Adam Gilchrist as my first opener, because it's a all format 11.
Yeah.
And also he's a wicket keeper.
That was my number 7, straight off my list.
So yeah, so I'm playing it a little safe. By picking him as my opener / wicket keeper. I have another wicket keeper option in hand, but I'm not sure if I'll pick him or not. So.
And before I choose my two, I think the obvious question would be, we've seen Gilly in ODIs and T20s opening the batting, but we've hardly seen him opening in tests. So the question to you is, do you see him as an effective opener in test cricket?
No, I wouldn't play him as an opener in a test match.
Okay.
He'll play at number 7, but so I'm picking him first. In ODIs and T20s, he'll open. In test matches, he'll go at number 7 or number 6.
Good.
And I think, hopefully, if I get my 11 right, I should have another opener at hand who could open the batting.
Right.
So I'll tell you the exact batting order later, but I'm going to pick 11 players. All
right. So my openers, and these will be my openers for all 3 formats. It will be Hayden and Hashim Amla. There's a reason why I went with Hayden. I think Hayden has proven to be a very effective opener in all 3 formats, across all conditions, etc. You bring him to Asia, he's been a prolific run scorer. You take him to England, he's had good series in England, and you know how deadly he is in Australia. But my second pick, Hashim Amla, I think is a very underrated cricketer. I think, especially in the short formats of the game. Many people, as he started out his career, everyone thought he was a Thilan Samaravira for South Africa when he started off his career. No one saw him as an explosive or dynamic batsman. But he supported Quinton de Kock very well in the T20s and ODIs whenever they opened together. And he has a strike rate, if I'm not mistaken, of around 120 or 130 in T20s, which is very respectable, considering the fact that he was nurtured as a test player to bat at number 3, just ahead of Jack Kelly. So I think those two will be my openers across all 3 formats. Kit, who's your number 2 and number 3 picks?
Okay.
By the way, did I steal anyone off you?
Not yet. No.
Oh, okay.
They weren't even in my reserves.
Okay.
Okay. So this is. Okay, so my number 2 pick is going to be Sachin. Undoubtedly, probably the best opening batsman I've seen in my lifetime,
Yeah.
and plays well in all conditions, um, and also a left-hand, right-hand combination with Gilly.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of all these strategic factors as well
Yeah.
when picking this. So my second option is Sachin to partner with Gilchrist. So let me write this down. Um, my number 3 pick. Now this is going to be this was difficult. I'm going to pick Viv Richards, Sir Viv Richards.
Thank you for stripping my number 3 off me as well.
I'm going to pick Viv Richards as my number 3 pick. I think his record speaks for itself. Again, he plays. He's also he paces his innings well. That I mean, I've never been lucky enough to watch him live. I watched a lot of kind of YouTube videos of him and kind of read books on him. And everything that I've read about him tells me that he's able to pace an innings. He's able to kind of build an innings around him, and also he's able to he can play in the shorter formats as well as the longer formats. He played slightly lower down the order in the 1975 World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. But his best performances have been in number 3 and number 4. So his best performance are in number 4, but I'm picking him in number 3, and I think he'd be a good number 3. So yeah.
All right. So my number 3. So my number. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Kit. My second option for my number 3 slot is Virat Kohli. As much as Sri Lankan fans despise him, I think I have to give it to him. He walks the talk on the field. He's a born leader. Although he's not my captain, he's a born leader. Someone who's delivered on all 3 fronts. I think I would say he is the Don Bradman of the current crop of batsmen. I know I know I'm giving him way too much credit, but I think he's someone who delivers on all 3 formats, carries the weight of India's expectations whenever he goes out to bat. Now, my number 4, and I'm doing this, he's not going to be my number 4, but I'm doing this because I fear him being stolen by you in your next 2 picks. So, and he'll be my captain of the side. It'll be Ian Botham. Providing me with that 5th bowling option as well later on, effective bowling option. A dynamic batsman, I think a batsman who would have enjoyed playing T20s, someone who would have thrived off playing T20s as a pure all-rounder. And I think he proved himself in Botham's ashes, showing us how effective he is in the long format of the game. And he has leadership skills that are needed to lead this side. So yeah, those would be my next 2 picks, Kohli and Ian Botham.
Okay, those are 2 very good picks. I wouldn't call Kohli the Bradman of the current era, because I'm about to pick the Bradman of the current era in my next 2 picks.
All right.
But yes, I mean he has performed well in all formats, and I don't disagree with his class. And so Ian Botham is a very good pick as well, and I can see why you picked him as your all-rounder / captain.
Yeah.
Right. So my number 4 and 5 picks. In number 4, and probably batting at number 4 as well, is going to be Sangha.
Right.
Again, he won't be keeping, but I mean, in a situation he can keep.
Yeah.
But I think he's most probably the best left-hand batsman I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And he can play under any conditions, under any circumstances. And him at number 4, after Gilchrist, Sachin, Sir Viv Richards, and then Sangha coming in at number 4 is just going to send a fear down bowlers' spines.
Yeah.
So I think in number 4, I think he's a good bet there. And even though he didn't open batting for Sri Lanka, I feel like he could potentially open if
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah.
That option. Then I'll discuss kind of batting placements later on. But yeah, that's my number 4 pick is Sangha, and thus giving me some Sri Lankan representation in my 11 as well.
Yeah.
This is not to say that Sangha is the best batsman Sri Lanka has produced. I think that is Aravinda without a doubt.
Yeah.
But in terms of my kind of team selection, I went for Sangha over Aravinda, partly because I wanted a kind of left-hand, right-hand combination as well. Okay, so Sangha is number 4. Number 5 is Steve Smith. Miles ahead of Kohli, in my opinion.
So is he your Don Bradman of the current generation?
He is my Don Bradman of the current generation. And current generation of kind of active players.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone who is as consistent in all formats of the game and in all conditions. And importantly, he is able to come out of adversity the way he showed during the Ashes and also the World Cup, and that shows me character. And those are the sort of characters I need in a dressing room. So if I'm
we'll make a direct comparison there. I think it's safe to say the 2019 Ashes was Steven Smith's Ashes. It's safe if you compare it with Botham's Ashes. I wasn't lucky enough to watch it live, and I'm sure you weren't as well. But we've seen the highlights, we've seen the footage.
I'm not that old, yeah. So I haven't seen
I was referring to us watching the highlights and the footage. How would you compare those two directly and their influence on those respective series? And do you think it was a like for like in terms of the impact that they both had in those respective series?
So in terms of, I think without either of them, their teams wouldn't have won the Ashes. However, I think the 2019 Ashes were closer than the Botham Ashes, in the sense that because Stokes was kind of Superman, this superhuman for England, which made the series very competitive. So had Steve Smith not performed or not been in the team, it would have been a whitewash for England. Whereas had Botham not played or performed, I think Australia would have won it, but not because
Botham's absence.
So I feel like the 2019 Ashes were probably closer and more competitive, which made Smith's performances even more valuable. So so those are my number 4 and 5. So Sangha and Smith.
All right. So I'm assuming my lineup Botham goes at number 6. So I'll have my number 4 and 5 picks now. For Sri Lankan representation, I go for Mahela Jayawardene. I think he's someone who's delivered on the big stage. We've seen him. I haven't seen a statistic to back me up on this or a fact to back me up on this. But would I be right in saying that he's perhaps the only player who scored a century in both of the World Cup semi-final and the final? I can't think of another player who scored 2 centuries in a semi-final and final of a World Cup. I might be wrong. I was talking in my mind. I had Sachin there, I had Ponting in my mind, but I'm not too sure. And I think getting away from that, I think he's someone who also he was, in my opinion, one of Sri Lanka's finest captains. I think we saw that with him nurturing guys like Ajantha Mendis, Akila Dhananjaya immediately after the SLPL of 2012, bringing them straight away into the Sri Lankan setup. Someone who was second to Arjuna Ranatunga in terms of our best captains, in my opinion. Someone with a similar dynamic, a similar character. And he could also add to the leadership presence in this side. So I've already had Kohli. So it's Hayden, Amla, Kohli, Jayawardene. And at number 5, potentially the most destructive batsman on his day, A.B. de Villiers. I think in addition to the broship he has with Kohli at RCB, I think they'll work well together in this lineup. And you just think back to a few innings. I think that innings against West Indies in South Africa during the pink ODI, when he just came in with 15 overs left and scored a 150, 160. in no time. And then he a few of his destructive knocks in the 2015 World Cup. I feel sorry for De Villiers in saying that I'm still of the view that if the semi-final in 2015 was not rain affected, I think South Africa would have clinched it over New Zealand. I think they lost a lot of momentum in the middle of their batting because of the disruption. I think Brendan McCullum came all guns blazing in the second innings and took the game away from South Africa. And I think his leadership, I would say it was on par with like the likes of Graeme Smith in terms of his impact on the South African side. So, yeah, I think that's a fairly strong top order and a middle order there with Hayne, Namla, Kohli, Jayawardene, De Villiers, and Ian Botham being the captains. So,
okay.
It's up to you.
No, I agree. And so, if at all, my only kind of gripe with you picking Mahela for an all-time, all-format, all-ground kind of, so all-condition
Are you saying that he's probably stronger in Asia as opposed to elsewhere?
Yeah, I don't think he's as strong on a green turf. I think comparatively, Sangha is probably strong on a seaming pitch than Mahela is. This is not to kind of, criticize Mahela, and I mean, he has been fantastic.
Yeah.
But if I'm nitpicking, I think that's my only. So I was wondering this as well, and that's my only.
Would it be an effective rebuttal for me to say that on the bigger stages, in games that actually mattered, Mahela had more of an impact than Sangakkara? I'm referring to the 2007 semi against New Zealand. I'm referring to the 2011 World Cup final. If not for Mahela's knock, I'm pretty sure we would have been bundled out for 190, 200. But Sangakkara did redeem himself in 2014 during the World T20 final. His knock, as was acknowledged by Kohli when he went to acknowledge Sangha, when Sangha reached his half century, showed us that Sangha did redeem himself on the bigger stage as well. And there's nothing to take away from Sangha. 4 consecutive hundreds on the bigger stage being the 2015 World Cup. I think that's something that speaks for itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, so my number, what is it? Number 6 and 7? Yeah, number 6 and 7. So I was wondering if I wanted to pick a wicket keeper here.
You've already got 2 of the best wicket keepers in the game.
Yes. But I'm not going to pick. I'm going to pick 2 all-rounders.
Okay.
Instead. So I'm going to pick at number 6, Sir Garfield Sobers.
I don't know if you Babylon in your side with Viv Richards and Garfield Sobers together.
Yes. So my number 6 is Sir Garfield Sobers. He, as we all know, he scored 300 plus, and his test record is exemplary. He's also one of the few cricketers to have scored 6 sixes in a row, which shows that he would have been great at T20 cricket. Unfortunately, he was not at his peak, or I don't think he played the World Cup. No, I don't think. I don't think he was around for the World Cup. So I think he would have been really good in one-day cricket as well. So overall, even though I don't have a record to show for his limited overs performances, international limited overs performances are much. I think his playing, his style, and also he bowls off spin / slow cutters.
Yeah.
So he can be a good foil when you need kind of a break. Although once you kind of go through my lineup, you'll see that I don't think I'll ever need a 6th or 7th bowling option, because I'm confident of my bowlers.
Right.
To kind of bundle through. But yeah, so my number 6 is Garfield Sobers.
Right.
And my number 7 is Kapil Dev, who will also be my captain.
Okay.
Again, all-rounder. Like you said, like Mahela, performed on the big stages, and he was a game changer during the big matches.
Yeah.
And also a strategic captain,
Yeah.
and an exemplary captain who was able to kind of rally his team around.
And
So.
Sorry, I wanted to ask you on this point. With Kapil Dev being your captain, I think it's a good time to link this in. With regards to the 4 Asian World Cup winning captains, I'm referring to Imran Khan, Kapil Dev, Arjuna, and MS Dhoni. If you were to compare the 4, I know they were all brilliant captains. Perhaps the first 3 were a lot better than MS Dhoni, in my opinion. I think MS Dhoni was lucky to have a brilliant side around him. Mm-hmm. Taking nothing away from him. How would you compare Kapil Dev with Imran Khan and Arjuna?
So I don't know if you watched this, but ESPN did 11 with the World Cup winning Asian side.
Yeah.
And I think Andrew makes a very good argument there.
Yeah.
When he says that the Sri Lankan will be the only person who will be able to kind of unite the Indians and the Pakistanis on one team.
Yeah.
So by default, I guess Arjuna is the selection there. But even kind of from an objective kind of perspective, without considering kind of politics of countries, in terms of a captain completely changing the dynamics of a team and making sure that the performance, the entire team was riding on him.
Yeah.
I think Arjuna is kind of my bet.
Yeah.
As the most influential and also kind of the most
assertive
important captain out of the 4 of them.
Yeah.
Because without Arjuna, I don't think Sri Lanka cricket gets where they did.
Because if I'm not mistaken, it was Arjuna who spoke to Sanath about trying to get him to open and start off that partnership with Sanath and Kalu that triggered everything for us that World Cup.
Yeah. And also kind of standing up to the Aussies, even when they kind of didn't come to Sri Lanka, and all these things. I mean, they all kind of created this psychological effect as well. I think this confidence within a team, and a cricket board that didn't have I think more than $500 or something in the bank account going to the World Cup. So all of those factors. So I think Arjuna without it.
And I think you had on one of your posts on FB, I think I made a point that had it not been for Arjuna's assertiveness in that game against England in Australia, when Darrell Hare and Emerson fought morally off guard, I think it would have had a trickle-down impact on the coaching setup in Sri Lanka as well. We wouldn't have seen the flamboyant players we have nowadays, like Malinga, players with unique actions, etc. Good pick. And who would be your number 7? Oh, sorry, you did say.
No, I already picked 2, so it's your turn. Yeah.
All right, so this is where things get a bit interesting. I don't want to be stripped off my bowlers as well, so I'll have to be clever with my number 8 pick. But before I get to number 8, I was thinking of number 7 for a long time. I think in this 11, I know I'm lacking a good keeper, but I know I have guys like De Villiers who could step in there if needed. Considering the fact that I have got some good fielders in the likes of Kohli, Jayawardene, etc. So I am going to risk it by not having a standout wicket keeper.
So you're going to have a part-time wicket De Villiers keep in tests?
No, so this is where I'm torn, right? With my number 7, and I'll tell you why. I had 3 picks for number 7 that I shortlisted. Right, I was going to go for Gilchrist, who was taken off me at the onset. So now I'm left with 3 options: Klusner, MS Dhoni, and Ben Stokes. The reason why I'm going for Dhoni is because I think if you take Gilchrist, Sangakkara out of the equation, I think he's someone who's a very impactful wicketkeeper. I think you can rely on him with the bat. You can rely on him behind the stumps as well. And I think he will, I'm not going to give too many clues away, but he will handle all facing the likes of certain spinners and certain pace bowlers that I have in my lineup. So having said that, I don't want, and with you just saying that it would be a good idea to risk De Villiers behind the stumps, I think I'm left with no other choice but to have MS Dhoni as my number 7. Was Klusner,
he was my other choice as well. So yeah.
whilst Klusner and Stokes both have strong claims into this for this 11, I think I am fine without them, seeing that both of them can be that all-round that I want him to be at number 6. And at number 8, before he stripped off me, Shane Warne would be my number 8. I think.
Okay.
I think. Let's not have the debate as to who's better. I think Warne and Murali both stand out, in my opinion. And I'm a biased Sri Lankan fan, so Murali will of course stand out for me. If I'm lucky to have him in my 11 later on, Murali will certainly feature, but we'll see how that plays out. But Shane Warne is someone who I can trust across all 3 formats. I think he has a bit of a. We've seen it openly documented recently that he has a bit of a rift with Steve Waugh, about Steve Waugh's not including him as often in the limited over setup for Australian cricket. I think, especially in T20s, we saw it with the Rajasthan Royals in 2008 when he led a side that comprised underdogs and took them to the title. I think he has that leadership skill that is needed to unite a team, and we know his feat with the ball. I think his records speak for him. His records speak out loud, and I think Shane Warne would be a good number 8. A handy batsman at times. We've seen some knocks and some contributions being made at number 8 in Test cricket, and I think, both Dhoni and Warne would be quite solid at number 7 and 8.
So my choice was between picking an extra all-rounder. So that's why I picked Sobers.
Yeah.
It was either Sobers or Dhoni. And since I already have 2 world-class wicket keepers, I thought it was a waste of a kind of a spot to go for it. And my spin preference would have been for Warne as well.
Right.
I think a wrist spinner is probably kind of effective in that sort of in any condition.
Yeah.
And then in any format. So I think I would have gone for Warne as well. Of course, let's see if Murali will feature later or not in my 11 or in yours. So it's my turn, right? So number 8 and 9. So number 8 is Sir Richard Hadlee, fast bowler. I mean, if you watch, there are YouTube videos of I think him bowling in Australia. Just whizzing balls past the Australian heads. And also a decent batsman, and I mean more than a decent batsman. Probably the greatest cricketer to come from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Hello.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, you got stuck. Sorry. So probably the greatest greatest cricketer to come out of New Zealand, and I think he'd be a good. Now my bowling attack starts forming. I think with Sir Richard Hadlee at number 8, and then at number 9, I'm going along with the Babylon team and picking Malcolm Marshall, who would bowl at minimum at 145 Ks per hour. Sir Richard Hadlee and Malcolm Marshall in a bowling lineup, and hopefully I get my other bowling options as well. I think can perform at any ground, any condition, without a doubt. So my number 9 is Malcolm Marshall.
Great pick.
Were any of them in your?
Malcolm Marshall was my number 10, but I will do without him. It's fine. But I'm going along the lines of the Babylon team here with number 6 and number 7. I think somewhat an underrated. When you take those great West Indian sides, you think of Malcolm Marshall, but you also think of Andy Roberts. I think someone with pace, with outright pace, someone who troubled batsmen at that time. And I think someone who could still trouble the best batsman today with that pace that he has. So I'm going with Andy Roberts and his pace bowling twin would be Wasim Akram in my side. There's a reason I'm
Okay.
going. There's a reason I'm going for Wasim Akram. I think I know many Sri Lankan fans think that Chaminda Vas should be considered amongst the greatest left-hand bowlers, but I think that would do injustice to Wasim Akram. In my opinion, he is by far the best left-hand bowler, left-arm quick that we've seen, and I think we've seen him. We've seen longevity in his career. He was very effective in 1992 in that World Cup final. I think there's the wicket of was it Ian Botham that with the reverse swing that took
Yeah.
off stump. And I think Wasim Akram is someone who is needed. And being my only left-arm bowler in my lineup, I think that variation is required as well. And if I get my other fast bowler right in this lineup, I think those two will present a force to reckon with at the start of the innings. And especially you take him to flat surfaces in India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. I think his ability to reverse swing the ball later on comes in handy. You take him to England, New Zealand, and I don't think you have a better swing bowling option than Wasim Akram at the start as a left-arm bowler.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, Akram was in my preferred 11 as well. Similar reasons to yours. I think I also needed a left-arm fast option.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Vas is a brilliant left-arm bowler, and he did with in not so friendly conditions. He was a very skillful bowler.
Yeah.
However, I think on flat surfaces,
Yeah.
more flat surfaces, I think you need a little bit of pace
And I think
and swing.
And I think the point against Vas is that, with no due disrespect to him, I think he came up with variations to complement his pace. But I think he lost a lot of pace as his career progressed. And I think that made him less of a factor to reckon with when it came to flat surfaces, as you said. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Okay. Right. So my number 10 and 11, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 and 11. Okay. So my number 10. So I have to pick. So I'm picking a left armer. That's for sure. And one I've seen play live, and I think he's brilliant, and he's won World Cups for his team on his own.
Could I guess
finals.
This? Could I take a wild guess?
Yeah.
Is it Mitchell Johnson?
Yeah. So he's an option. The other option is, and this is purely based on what I've read. I've not seen any of his any of his performances. Unfortunately, this is purely based on what I've read. Is a former Australian left-arm fast bowler by the name of Alan Richardson, who kind of destroyed India in I think the 1940s or something, during a series in the 40s. And so I don't know. So sorry, I think 50s. Yeah. So it's a toss-up between them, but since I don't know, I'd never seen Alan Richardson play live. I think I'm going to pick Mitchell Johnson, and Mitchell Johnson at his peak with his reverse swing, with his guile, and also kind of he stands up during when he was needed, particularly that 2015 World Cup final. So I'm going with Mitchell Johnson. I would have preferred Akram for sure. But I'm going with Mitchell Johnson. So that's my number 10 pick. And my number 11 pick has to be... So, listen, Vaughan was my preferred pick, I must confess. But the close second was obviously Murali. I know I don't have a wrist spinner in my setup, but I think there's only space for one spinner. When you pick like an all condition 11, and anyway I have like plenty of spin slash all-rounders who can kind of turn
Yeah.
their arm around and in the ball if they want. Sachin is, I think, capable of doing that. Steve Smith can bowl
Yeah.
if he kind of gets back to his old roots of being a leg spinner.
Yes.
Sir Garfield Sobers can bowl a few off spinners as well. So my number 11 pick is the great Muthaiya Muralidharan.
That's a formidable lineup. We'll compare lineups later on. So it leaves me with my number 11. And I think I had the same doubt as you. Should I go in with two spinners? And I told myself, unless you're playing in Asia on a day 4, day 5 track, I don't think two spinners would, although having Murali and Vaughan in the same side would be any captain's dream. So then I'm left with, so having had this in my mind, I think another spinner who will fail to feature in any of our sides but deserves a mention is, I think, Saqlain Mushtaq. Someone who would definitely be a third pick for a spinner.
Yeah, so he was my third pick as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, but because I'm sticking with Vaughan as my spinner, it leaves me with a pace bowling option. And I think there's an obvious name out there, and that would be Glenn McGrath, I think. Having McGrath backing Vaughan, and you saw, as much as Vas and Murali was a deadly combination for Sri Lanka, I think it was the same impact or a greater impact that McGrath and Vaughan had for Australia. And with McGrath opening the bowling with Wasim Akram, I think you have two of the best swing bowlers anyone could ask for. And then with Andy Roberts coming in with sheer pace as your first change, I think that provides a lot of, with Roberts coming in as a first change of option for captain, with Botham chipping in as well, I think you have a solid quartet of pace bowlers with Vaughan completing the bowling repertoire. And I think, so now we'll compare both sides. If there are two players you would have liked to have from my side, who would those two players have been? Or would I be right in saying
two players from your side?
Akram and
so two players from your side would be Akram and Vaughan. Easy.
Yeah.
I think
And
if you start in Akram and
who would those two have replaced? Is it right for me to say Akram would have replaced Mitchell Johnson and Vaughan would have replaced Murali?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I was to refer to the two
that
you made, it would be Gilchrist and Viv Richards. Perhaps Viv Richards coming in ahead of Jayawardene, I think that would have been a go-to for me. And Gilchrist coming in for, who do I go? Perhaps I would have dropped Amla in this case and gone with Gilchrist and Hayden to open the batting for me.
Okay. Do you want to pick reserves?
Okay, we'll go for 3 reserves each. If that.
Okay, 3 reserves. Okay.
We'll break it up. We'll go about like this. Let's assume this ultimate side is playing in Asia. Who would your 12th man be, or someone who would like to draft in, and who would you draft him in for?
If they were playing in Asia.
Yeah. So on spin-friendly condition, would it be Saqlain Mushtaq?
Well, yes. I think it would be Saqlain as kind of on spinning conditions. But if it was, I think Saqlain would be in my reserves.
Would you feature him in your 11?
No. So I would play Murali over him.
Right.
If it was a spinning track, maybe I might drop Sir Garfield Sobers and play Saqlain Mushtaq as well.
But
so drop an.
My worry there is, wouldn't you be leaving your batting too short?
Mate, my batting is Gilchrist, Sachin, Viv Richards, Sangha, Steve Smith, and Kapil Dev. I mean, if they can't score runs, I don't know who can. I mean, if they fail as a batting lineup, I'm just giving up on cricket overall. And then we also have Richard Hadley. And then Murali coming in at number 11 and smashing people all around. I mean, This is like a dream betting lineup.
I agree. If I had to pick someone for Asian conditions, and since you've gone with Sakli and Mushtaq, I'll let you have him. Uh, my 12th man would be Anil Kumble. I think someone who's very underrated. Someone who would a leg spinner that's needed perhaps in these conditions to perhaps complement someone like Vaughan in the side. And he would, I don't think he'd feature directly unless it was an absolute turner, like day three at goal, for example. If there was a test match in goal, usually.
I mean, some days on day one as well. So.
Yeah, I take Kumble, perhaps over Andy Roberts. I don't think having sheer pace in conditions like goal adds much to it. Like we saw Stark and Cummins, etc., Stark and Hazelwood, etc., struggle in goal in that test match when we whitewashed Australia, thanks to Rangana Herath's brilliance in those conditions. Oh, actually, perhaps I'll go with Rangana Herath over Anil Kumble. I think someone who was under the shadow of Murali for a long, long time, and someone who is amongst the top 10 test wicket takers, if I'm not mistaken. So I will pick Herath as my 12th man. So now let's assume we're going to New Zealand or England for that matter.
Okay.
Who would you have? Perhaps as that extra seam bowler.
Extra seam bowler, I will go with Dennis Lillee.
Fair enough. Any justifications for that choice? No.
I don't think that there is a necessity for a justification. If I wanted extra seam bowler, I would want someone who has seam swing.
Yeah.
So kind of hits the deck and swings, and also pace.
Yeah.
On a kind of green top. So I mean, I think I already have a pretty good fast bowling lineup. But if I really had to choose another fast bowler, it will be either Dale Steyn or Dennis Lillee.
Good pick.
And I'm going with Dennis Lillee on this.
So yeah, I don't think I need to compliment my quartet of pace bowlers, but if I had to pick another pace bowler and give him an honorary mention in here, I think it would be James Anderson, especially in those conditions. I think he's someone who too goes under the radar of great fast bowlers. Perhaps it's because there is a notion that he only performs in England, in New Zealand, etc. But I think he's someone who sustained his pace for a long period of time. I don't think his pace has dropped significantly from 2003 onwards when he started making a huge impact. So yeah, it would be Herath and Anderson as my two reserves thus far. And now if you want to pick another batsman, just in case someone in your top 6 decides to have an off day or decides to not feature in the side, who would
have
be
an injury?
Batsman.
Okay, so shall we pick one batsman and one all-rounder so that then we have one extra for each?
Yeah.
So my batsman would probably it's a toss-up between three people. So it's either Gordon Grech, Aravinda, or Graham Pollock.
Right.
So
this will be interesting.
It's a toss-up between those three, and I think I may need an extra opener.
Fair enough.
Particularly when Gilchrist goes at number 7 or number 6.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I might drop one of the all-rounders and play Gordon Grech.
Yeah.
There is a YouTube video of about 7 minutes of Gordon Grech just going off on Asanta Dimel. It's brilliant.
I'm pretty sure Sri Lankan fans would love to watch that now.
it's quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so I'm picking my extra opener, given the option, and I'm going to pick Gordon Grech.
Right.
How about you?
So for my extra batting option, I think I'm quite set on Hayden and Amla opening. I think I wouldn't. I'll put it this way, I don't think Amla features anywhere in my middle order. So he'll have to open if he wants to be in the 11. And Hayden can't bat in elsewhere except at number 1 in my book. So I'm going with Alan Border. Strange pick, very strange pick, but I'm going with him because I've just looked at my side and I don't have, except Hayden, I don't have a single left-handed batsman in my side. And since you've taken Garfield Sobers, Sangakkara, Gilchrist, and the likes, I think Alan Border is someone who had a decent record. I was torn between Alan Border and Mark Taylor. But
Mark Taylor? Wow, okay.
I don't know. There's something about Mark Taylor and Matthew Hayden that I really, really like. I don't know whether it's their style with the bat. I think that they're two players who had a very unique approach to opening batting. And it would be, but I'd stick with Alan Border because he can bat somewhere in the middle. He has that leadership skill as well. If Ian Botham decides to go on a club run the night before and decides not to show up in the morning. So yeah, Alan Border would be my batsman. Who would be all-rounder, Kit?
My all-rounder is going to be, I mean, I already have like two really good all-rounders.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to pick Cullis.
Right.
Jacques Cullis. I think Jacques Cullis is I think he features in a lot of discussions about all-rounders, but he doesn't get as much credit.
And if you see every Ultimate 11 or Best 11, he's always that number 6 pick.
Yeah.
What is it about Cullis that makes him so unique? I know he doesn't have much pace as a bowler. He's not the most flamboyant batsman around. But what is it about him? Is it his consistency to deliver when required?
Yeah, I think it's his consistency, and it's his consistency across his career. Maybe except towards the end of, I think his last series was quite bad. I think particularly in Sri Lanka. And also kind of he performs in all conditions. He's able to bowl those kind of wavy, medium pace deliveries and get wickets. I mean, at the start of his career, he was quite fast.
Yeah.
I think he was probably faster than a majority of the current Sri Lankan fast bowlers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's a reliable all-round. I don't think I need any more all-rounders with Kapil Dev, Sobers, and Hadley in that lower middle order.
Yeah.
But I think if I really needed an all-rounder, and probably if I needed kind of a super sub 12th man, for example, to kind of put in, that it would probably be Cullis. I was also kind of picking between Cullis and Stokes. I think Stokes is becoming that player.
Yeah.
And I mean, it'll be interesting to see whether Stokes can sustain that. I think he had a fantastic 2019. Yeah. Can he sustain that across multiple years? So if he does that, then I think he goes above Cullis. But at least at this point in time, I think Cullis is still ahead of Stokes in my ranking.
So for my all-rounder, I think I need an all-rounder because if you look at my 11, it's only Botham that stands out as an all-rounder. And in the event that I decide perhaps to play a T20 with De Villiers behind the stumps, and if I can drop Dhoni or De Villiers, one of the two, I think it then boils down to what kind of all-rounder do I want. And you made a strong case for Stokes and a case against Stokes, and I think I side with this case against him. I think we're just judging him off of brilliant 2019, and I think it would be unfair to all-rounders who have sustained consistency throughout their careers. And I think another all-rounder who goes under the radar, perhaps because people don't value his batting as much, would be Sean Pollock. I think he would be a handy number 8 or number 7 if required. In the event that
I would consider him more of a, sorry,
in the event that my top order decides to have an off day, which shouldn't happen with the caliber of this top order.
I think, to be fair, if your top order decides to have an off day, Pollock is not the player to save you.
I do realize that, but I also think that he's someone who is very economical with the ball if required, and someone who has chipped in when required with the bat. He's not a genuine all-rounder. I completely agree. but he is someone who's able to hold his end when required and support someone at the top. And I think he's someone who will feature perhaps as my number 8, but I don't see him fitting in my first 11. I think this first 11 stands out for itself. And before we reach the conclusion of this, I think there will be many comments, many points of feedback as to how we chose players who we've never played T20s, etc., who never had the exposure to the shorter formats of the game. Because back when certain players who we've chosen played, even ODIs were 60 overs. And I think that's something that most people tend to forget when referring to the evolution of ODI cricket. And seeing that you have more players more former players than I do. I think my side just has Ian Botham and Andy Roberts from that era. What contributed towards you picking them into this current structure of international cricket?
So for me, if you have a solid technique and if you have the basics right, then you can innovate and then you can kind of flourish in any edition of the game. So I think the best examples of that are Sangha and Mahela, who are traditionally kind of your traditional players who have good techniques.
Yeah.
And as the game evolved, they evolved as well.
Yeah.
So the likes of Garfield Sobers, the likes of Viv Richards, these are all players who had very good techniques and were able to adjust their game plan according to the game situation.
Yeah.
And that is what T20 is all about. I mean, if you think about it, T20 is just if it was a rained off game with 20 overs to play,
it would be.
That's it. I mean, I think people overcomplicate T20. They try and do the Dill scoops.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the younger players try to become T20 players first and then try to adapt to becoming test match players.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that the transition from being a good test player to a good ODI player to a T20 player is much easier to do.
Yeah.
And is, I think, probably the most sustainable way to go about it than trying to excel at T20s and then kind of shifting to the longer formats.
And I think it will be the same thing with my side. I think 2 players stand out, and you've mentioned one of them, Mahela Jayawardene. But I think Hashim Amla as well was that typical player who one would have never expected him to be a good T20 player. But he's delivered when required, and someone who's taken his technique and his style of play from Test and evolved it into T20. And I think this is where my next question comes in. I know it's a question that strays away from our theme today, but because we are Sri Lankan cricket fans, it's a question I have for you. We've seen players like Avishka Fernando, who many consider limited overs as a limited over specialist. If he is to have a successful career for Sri Lankan cricket, do you think it's important that he's involved in the test setup? Or do you think we need to keep him as that ODI and T20 specialist? Purely as an ODI and T20 specialist?
I don't think he should be rushed into the test team. Particularly, I think especially in ODIs, he needs to improve his temperament. So he needs to play a lot more long innings to score those centuries. And if he's able to bat through an innings in an ODI, so forget T20. I don't take T20 seriously.
Yeah. That is an important question. Was that hierarchy that we all have, Tests, ODIs, and T20s, an important aspect when it came to you choosing this side? Was the dominance in Tests and ODIs more important for you than the presence in a T20 game?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I picked players who had decent strike rates if they were batsmen. I picked, bowlers who tend to bowl fast, but also had good yorkers, had variations and stuff like that. And those all come in handy in T20s. However, my primary focus was, can they win me a test match on a 5-day game, or can they win me an ODI, a 50-over game? So, I mean, those were my 2 main considerations. I think if they can do those 2, I think they'll be good.
And so our final 2 questions are, so firstly, will it be possible for you to once again give us your side, perhaps with a confirmed batting lineup, if possible, as well?
Okay. So I would say so ODIs, or do you want tests?
Either way, or you can do both and tell me where the variations come in accordingly.
Okay, so if it's tests, I would go. So I'm going to use my sub, my
Okay,
12th man. So I'm going to use Greenwich and Sachin
right,
opening the batting. Number 3, Sir Viv Richards.
right,
Number 4, Sangha.
yeah,
Number 5, Steve Smith.
yeah,
Number 6, Kapil Dev. Yeah.
yes.
Hold on. So did I get that right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So Greenwich opening with Sachin. Number 3, Viv Richards. Number 4, Sangha. Number 5, Steve Smith. Number 6, Kapil Dev.
Would I be right in saying that Sobers steps out for Greenwich in this
Yeah.
scenario?
Yeah. Number 6, Kapil Dev. Number 7, Gilchrist. So the two of them can switch. I think Gilchrist might go number 6 and Kapil Dev number 7.
Yeah,
And then number 8, Hadley.
yeah,
Sir Richard Hadley. Number 9, Malcolm Marshall. Number 10, Mitchell Johnson. And number 11, the best batsman of my team, Muthaiya Muralidharan.
and Kapil
So that's
Dev,
my test.
and Kapil Dev will be your captain.
Yeah, Kapil Dev is my captain.
And for the ODI side, what variations would that be to that?
So ODIs, Gilchrist will open with Sachin.
Yeah,
Then number 3, Viv Richards. 4, Sangha. 5, Smith. 6, Sobers. 7, Kapil Dev. 8, Hadley, Marshall,
yeah.
Johnson, and Murali.
All right, so my 11 would be Hayden and
And it
Amla.
will be the same for T20s.
Right, Hayden and Amla opening across both formats. Kohli at number 3, Jayawardene at number 4, De Villiers at number 5, Botham as your captain at number 6, Dhoni at 7, Vaughan at 8, Akram at 9, Roberts at 10, and the second best batsman of our era, McGrath, at 11. And before we wrap up, if the MCC watches this and says, "Oh, we want to simulate this game at Lords," what key matchups are you looking forward to seeing? Because I know we've crossed eras, we've crossed generations of cricketers, etc. What are the key matchups here if you look at both our 11s?
I don't know about matchup, but I'm thinking I'm going to win this match. My batting is a lot. My batting is a lot more stronger. I think our bowling is somewhat equal, but I think my batting and my all-rounders.
I'll put it this way: I think if it was a test match, I'm sure your batting stands out a lot more than mine does. But in the shorter formats of the game, I think it's a lot tougher to say. I think there are guys on my side like Kohli, De Villiers, who can take a game away on their day.
I mean, the reason why I say this is Marshall and Hadley are definitely going to get the better of Amla and Hayden, without a doubt.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, Lord's first day on a slightly green pitch with the slope. Hayden is going to fish outside off stump. Amla is going to get bounced off. So yeah, I mean, that's just it's just going to be chaotic. Anyway, matchups. So I think the interesting matchups that I would see are kind of how the all-rounders perform against the batsman.
Fair enough.
So, for example, when you play Botham, how would Botham bowl against my middle order? So Viv Richards, Sangha, and Smith.
Yeah.
Kind of they perform. I think that's an interesting dynamic because the obvious ones are the fast bowlers versus the openers, sort of thing. But I would be interested to see how. I mean, you have only one all-rounder, so how Botham kind of manages with that middle order when inevitably Roberts, Akram, and McGrath kind of tire out a little bit once my openers kind of score about 500 runs.
And so having discussed the key match, I also think a key matchup would be to see how our two spinners fare, Murali and Vaughan respectively. I think it'll be fun to see who does a lot better on the day. And I think in terms of, and I also think in terms of the number 6-7 slot, where you have Kapil Dev and Gilchrist, and where I have Gautam and Dhoni, I think that's a very comparable matchup right there. If there was one selection you were shocked by on my side, what would that selection have been? Would that have been Hayden / Amla?
I think the shock was Amla. Hayden, I can see. I think you needed a kind of an aggressive left-hand batsman, and I can see why you picked Hayden.
Yeah.
But I think Amla is the kind of the surprise pick there.
Yeah.
I think the others were in my mind. The others were kind of either my preferred options or kind of my second or third option. So I think Amla is the surprise pick in that.
I think.
How about you? What were your?
If I'm looking at your side, Sir Will Richards, Gilchrist were going to feature in my 11. So I'm a bit. It's a bit raw right now seeing those two on your side. But I think if I'm looking at, I think there were two interesting picks, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying they shocked me, but I'm saying those were two picks that I would not have gone with. But I can see why they would fit in perfectly into this side, and those two picks would be Sir Richard Hadlee and Steve Smith. I think we can go on all day about Steve Smith versus Kohli, but I think in hindsight, I'd say that Steve Smith and Kohli, I think it's doing injustice to Smith and Kohli to put them on the same level as Williamson and Root. I think those two stand out way more than the other two in the equation.
Sorry, putting them on the same level as whom?
As Joe Root and Kane Williamson.
Okay.
I think Kane Williamson is definitely third, but I don't think Joe Root deserves to even be in that equation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry to all English fans tuning in, but Joe Root does not feature there. And I think someone who I was also shocked by, as I said earlier, was Sir Richard Hadlee. Why I was shocked by him was because I think you have a good seam bowling setup already with Malcolm Marshall, Mitchell Johnson, Kapil Dev. And if I'm not mistaken, Sir Garfield Sobers is a left arm, quick as well.
He did everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think but I can see why you chose Sir Richard Hadlee when I had taken Wasim Akram on my side. Overall, I think these two are good sides, very different in their own likes. I think it's two very different, distinct sides. And I think it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Any final thoughts on our two respective levels, apart from the fact that you strongly think that your side will definitely come up proud?
Yeah, I think my side is just going to like run all over your side. I mean, just looking at this, and I'm like, I'm not going to lose this unless they're like ball tampering. But yeah. But yeah, those are my final thoughts.
And who would be a couple of notable players that we both left out? Players who we know will come up in the comments, who will come up as feedback from our fans tuning in. Who would be the 2 or 3 players who are notable omissions on both our sides?
So Aravind definitely.
Yeah.
Aravind, I think, deserves a mention.
Brian Lara would be one.
Lara, yes. So surprising. So I was actually considering him as an option, and that is Kevin Peterson.
You mean the KP before all the South African series related madness?
Yeah, I mean, he retired on what, 200 or 200?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he retired when he was really, at his peak. And he was consistently good, and he was probably the only English player
who could play
as a Sri Lankan fan. Yeah, no, as a Sri Lankan fan, he was the only English player I personally was afraid of.
Yeah.
He was the only English player who could play spin.
Yeah.
And
I still remember, was it that reverse sweep for 6 of Murali at Edgbaston? I think that's still the vivid memory. And I think...
And he scored, I think, 200 at SSC, if I remember correctly, during that.
I agree with you. I think, in my eyes, Peterson is the best batsman England has ever I can't say England has ever produced, but England imported the best imported. Yeah, Peterson would have definitely been a notable omission. I also think I know this is a strange call, but I think players like Virendra Sehwag, Sanat on their
Yeah,
day.
so Sanat was also on my list.
Yeah, and if you look at the bowling lineups, I think perhaps one notable omission, maybe maybe Waqar Younis. I don't know, as someone who could have complemented our respective team attack. But I think we've covered the big names across many generations. Both
so if I wanted to add one more name, potential name, and again I think he's at the early stages of his career, but he's going to be a great. I'm pretty sure of this. This is Pat Cummins. I think he's kind of the modern day McGrath, but faster. With pace. And I think that's going to be a potent combination. So I think he's got the right attributes to be in a all-time 11 at some point in the future. Maybe not yet, but I think he's one to look out for.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Kid. That was very enjoyable. To all our fans tuning in, do drop us your favorite all-time, all-format 11, and we will engage with those as well and perhaps feature them in our next episode. Referring to that, Kit and I have decided that from now on we will have a few episodes focusing on underappreciated Sri Lankan sports personality. It could be in any sport. So if you all have suggestions, if you all have names that have popped up before that you think we should engage with and people we should contact, please let us know via an email at thearmchairreview@gmail.com or in the comments below. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed this.
See you.